Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do.
I think initially you need to just let it be. I think too much interaction straight off, you're not going to get the response that is required in a situation like that. So one of the things I often say, good and bad, is just journal it straight away.
Yeah.
With as soon as you can, write that to paper. And there's pictures of Reese and Eamon, the guy I coached down in Dublin as well, who's coming up really nicely on floor, and I get them to write it down straight away. There's pictures of Reese in the competition hall 5 minutes after and on the floor in straddle fold.
Yeah.
Writing out how he feels, because I want to capture that emotion straight away, and then package that, and then maybe in a day or two write it again and see if that's changed. So for me, my process for good and bad is pretty much the same, that I let it just simmer there, let the gymnast figure that out, and as long as they've written it down, because there's so much happening all at once. And then I'll usually address it. I would very much encourage this democratic style of coaching. And ultimately, I think that's a massive cultural change that we've had in sport. I think we're this old style of this autocratic, top-down, cards closed, decisions made without the athlete. That's outdated. I don't think it works anymore. I think we're shifting nicely to this democratic style of coaching where everyone has a say, and it's based on an idea meritocracy where the best idea wins. It's not what coach says, because that just doesn't work. We're not in the army. These are people's careers. These are human beings. They're not just your gymnasts as a coach. They're human beings that are building their own lives, and it's about making sure that you holistically develop them so that they're as well prepared for life as possible. And I think that's, as coaches, that's the best way we can deliver sessions and be as coaches, because we're not just coaches as well. We're human beings. We want to develop. We want to understand. And I think as long as you're hungry for that education of the human condition and the sport as a whole, then why not try and extract as much information as possible? And I think that can only work if it's based on truth, because kids aren't silly. Kids are not stupid. They will sniff you out if they think there's not truth involved here. And you can only fake it till you make it so many times. You know what I mean? You have to understand your craft. Otherwise, you'll just get sniffed out. And the moment that that's broken, and that bond and that trust, because sometimes it will be that the coach has to make a decision. Okay, we're going into a final. Two of the top dogs have just fallen. We now need to make a snap decision that, okay, you don't need to do your big routine. Maybe you need they need to trust you on that. They need to 100% trust you. And it can't just be a coach says. It's democratically done. And okay, how do you feel about this? And that's not just normally done on then and there. You got to practice that. You got to practice that in the gym. Okay, we're doing a control comp. Okay, now you're doing your upgraded routine. Okay, now you're not, and you practice that. Those kind of, I think I've went off on a tangent there. But
no, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want to talk about, because
I'll constantly be writing down my ideas, and I'll have my blueprints of my programs that I often do, and they're done in 10-day chunks over 8-week period, and there's certain cycles within that, and I'll lay that out. I'll hook my laptop up to the TV, and we'll line up in the gym, and we'll say, right, okay, let's have a wee sit down. Here's the program that I see. So we're preparing for the World Cup series now. Okay, so that program started, and before that program started, 2 days out, actually it was a bit longer than that. I threw it up on the TV and I said, "Here's the program, boys. This is the blueprints." Very rarely it's going to go to plan. Okay, so these numbers on this day might change, and this week might change altogether, and depending on the load. Important thing is that we have an open discussion all the time. So if you haven't slept the night before, I want to know about it, because I don't want you doing a CAS triple twist on the hard landing if you're sleep deprived, or if you're not feeling well, or any of these types of things. And I think this autocratic style wouldn't allow for such an open discussion, because gymnasts would be scared to say, because they know the numbers have to be, or coach isn't going to be happy. But this open discussion built on truth and a nice, honest, open relationship, I think, is really the only way to do it, because knowing and understanding yourself. And It's something that I learned maybe in my early 20s, where I started really actively thinking, why am I making this decision? What is leading to me thinking this way? Or,
Mm.
I wasn't a great competitor. I would train very hard in the gym, but in terms of competition, just never pulled it off. Always just choked. And that's what kind of started it, that I started
Mm.
thinking, why can I do this in the gym and not in competition? And started kind of reverse engineering it, and figuring out, okay, well, this is leading to this, and this emotion here is making me feel this way. And I think that's so important for athletes to understand their
Yeah.
own their own emotions, their own decision making. Because if you can know yourself, I think there's a old saying about, understand the moment that you understand yourself, that's when wisdom begins, or something
Mm.
along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
And that's very, very true. I think that's when you can really begin to authentically be yourself, which is
Sure.
so freeing.
Sure.
You don't need to pretend, you don't need to
Mm.
be this or that. And I think that's where you'll see your best competitions and your best outcomes, whether it's in or out of sport, just as a person in relationships. It was simply as doing everyday tasks, you'll just be more yourself, you'll be happier. And I think, isn't that what we all want?
Yeah.
My advice is to critically think, to
Mm.
actively think about it, and not distract yourself all the time. And I think that is one vice that a lot of people that I see day in, day out fall victim for, perhaps,
Totally.
is the readily available distractions
Mm.
in everyday life
Mm.
nowadays. So I work out. It's therapy to me. I'm very keen on it. I do it 5 days a week. And when I look around the gym and I see 90%, maybe more, 95% are on their phones when they're in the gym. That is a distraction. You're not focused on the act, okay? And this is the same for at nighttime, or any time where you are alone, so you don't have the daily distraction. So if you're in work, you're kind of in work mode. If you're in
Mm.
the gym, you're kind of in gym mode. But when you do have that nice time where you've got a nice little lamp on and it's a mellow mood, and you're able to actually think, most people that I see and I know will have their phones out and they'll be scrolling, or they'll be looking at something else. And so that's a distraction to that critical thinking time. That would be the biggest single bit of advice, is cut the distractions out and actually spend time thinking what is annoying you. So if something comes up that is upsetting, or it's triggered you, and you've now got this series of negative emotions, okay, stop, try and figure that out. Okay, I sense this emotion is
Mm.
negative, and figure out what was that trigger. If you
Mm.
figure that out, you can maybe stop that happening, or at least understand it better. And
Mm.
then there begins the journey to understanding what that trigger is. Because we've all got triggers, no matter what it is.
Yep.
And they can be silly, or they can be deep rooted,
Mm.
but understanding that can really help. And then you can just reverse engineer from there. And I've tried a new thing recently, which maybe people will find it helpful or not, that when you are able to be off, so you've got a day off, don't look at the time. Don't
Mm.
be controlled by the time.
Yeah.
Quite often we're in this work environment, and if you're pragmatic and you're working hard, then everything's, you're scheduled, and you've got to be here on this time, you've got a meeting at this time, and you've got to do X, Y, and Z. But if you can kind of just escape that those boundaries of time, then it can free up your thinking a little bit. And I think that's when
Mm.
I'm most creative. And you feel it a lot on holiday. If you ever go to
Yeah.
holiday,
Yeah.
you're sitting on a sun lounger, you're not caring about the time, you're not caring about a meeting here or there, and then all of a sudden you start feeling happier. You're kind of in a more creative mood, and then all of a sudden then you're starting buzzing with
Lots
I
of
guess
good.
listening to good people as well, because
Yeah.
you can hear a lot of crap throughout the day.
Yeah.
You turn on the news, it's negativity. You look on social media and news, it's negativity. And there is a lot of negativity that you can absorb if that's what you're setting your day up to.
Mm.
But if you switch that around and you don't watch that stuff, and you don't listen to that negativity, and you follow people that are inspirational and doing amazing things, and maybe it's a 10-second quote that you listen to in the day at the morning, but if you follow the right people on social media, for
Mm.
example, if you do scroll in the morning as you're having your coffee, well, then at least maybe it's something positive. So there's a
Right.
slight, small little change that,
Right.
okay,
Right.
you're not just cutting social media out with going cold turkey, but
Mm.
at least you can gain knowledge and information and inspiration from those types of conversations. So yeah, listening and speaking to people that are wiser than you can help. And I
I,
guess how to deal with them is I have found to not, gosh, it might sound counterintuitive, but to not take the end result so seriously. It's not life and death. You
mm,
know, whether this goes to plan or not, it's not life and death. And sometimes all of that anxiety can totally blur the experience of that moment.